So let's go ahead and get started. Again, welcome. I'm Susan Moeller from BuzzSumo. I really like chatting with people on Twitter or via email, so feel free to reach out to me if you have questions there. I wanted to start today with a quick definition of curated content. I think that Christina Cisnero from Hootsuite summed it up the best when she said content curation is the ongoing quest to find, enjoy, and share the best material available with your followers. When you do this well, it can be a strategic part of building your audience. Here are some of the benefits that I see to content curation. First thing that content curation does is helps you to establish your brand as a trusted source for relevant information. Everyone has limited time. If you provide them with the content that they need more quickly and in a usable format, your audience will turn to you first when they need to know something, and that kind of attention is really invaluable. Content curation also gives you the opportunity to have more conversations with your audience. I think sometimes people think of curation as just passing on a link, but I think that misses the point. Why not hold up that link and invite your audience to discuss it with you? This is going to strengthen your relationship with your customers and create a valuable dialogue. Content curation can also help you build your own blog. Your own media resources can be expanded more rapidly and less expensively when you curate content well. And you can curate content for ideas that then you can use in your own original posts. And I mean to do that without duplicating, plagiarizing, or other unethical tactics. You can use the content you find also by sharing links when they're appropriate to feed that insatiable beast of social networks. Curation also helps you to get more value from the mentions of your brand or product. Why let those mentions just sit on someone else's blog or newsfeed when you could harness and showcase them for your own audience? You can think of it as letting someone else toot your own horn, but making sure that you and all your friends are listening. Content curation can also strengthen your relationships with influencers by making it easier to quote and link to them and offering them genuine value as you become a loyal part of their audience. And content curation can solidify your customer relationships if you use it to highlight their successes. You can make your customers look good in your content curation. Now, we're all familiar with the image of alpine climbers who use porters to help them establish base camps below the peak of a mountain so that they can more easily reach the top. In many ways, content curation performs that Sherpa role in our content marketing, carrying some of the weight, getting us closer to the goal, and then freeing our energy to concentrate on the summit. Here's the thing. Curating at this level doesn't just happen in one giant link sharing session with the social scheduling tool of your choice. I'm not saying that you shouldn't load up your buffer with content, but that's not the type of curation that is going to drive engagement. To increase engagement, you're going to need to plan. I love how Joshua Knight says this. You need a plan. Get your team together and create a documented content strategy. He shared that in a post on Top Rank blog. Top Rank Marketing. So you're going to need a plan, first of all, to share links to other people's content. Here's an example of some of the links that have been shared from the BuzzSumo blog. In many cases, these were just simple shares of a link. These people found our content, they liked it, they shared it, but they don't share everything. So there is some curation at play, even in simple link sharing. I would like to urge you to remove any automated sharing from your plans for curation. I just think that no one's blog is good enough to bear the weight of auto sharing. Another idea that might be able to replace auto sharing or just used in general is to share a link that is of something that is genuinely helpful for your audience. One way to do that is monitor the information that social networks are publishing about themselves, and then provide a quick, actionable summary for your audience. That's an example, or this is an example that I've taken from Seriously Social, the Seriously Social Facebook page. And this post highlights a new feature that's available at Twitter. Mari Smith does a great job of this by keeping her audience up to date on the latest algorithm changes at Facebook. Now, the information like this from Twitter or when Mari publishes something from Facebook, it's actually readily available usually in the network's blogs or their developers blog page. So I would suggest setting alerts for new posts at those sites so that you'll know immediately when something new is released at the Facebook developers blog or at blog.twitter. You can also focus on reading industry and financial news. I actually like the Fortune Daily data sheet that gets emailed to me. It helps keep me aware of ownership changes in big media companies and other things that are happening around the tech world. You can also set and monitor alerts for mentions of social networks. Another great source for links to share comes from your own earned media. When someone mentions you, don't just let that mention sit there as long as it's positive. Go ahead and share the link to the earned mention. We've just added a new feature that makes this easier. This feature came about as a response to one of our PR clients who wanted a quick way to keep track of the mentions of their clients. Now, when you find an article either in BuzzSumo's monitoring or most shared section that mentions your brand, you can save the article by clicking on the bookmark beside the headline. That allows you to create a new list or to add the content to an existing list, like this one we have for success. So when you're ready then to export that list, or when you're ready to report on your earned media mentions, you can export the list. Now, you'll also notice that there's a share button inside these lists of shared content. So when you're scheduling media posts, you can schedule shares of these mentions of your own brand or product. I think that's actually an important feature because you don't want to bore your audience by a whole day on Twitter of guess who's talking about us posts, unless your audience is populated only by your mom, in which case that might work for you. Now, another idea for curating links to share is to notice the online content that is genuinely helpful for you and share it with your audience. This seems like a really simple idea, but if you're focused on a particular task, it's easy to forget to share this type of success. I did this recently when I was having difficulty getting link previews to load in Facebook. I found an article that told me what to do, and after I followed their steps, I circled back and posted asking my audience if anyone else was having trouble with the issue, and then I shared the solution link. The company that published the post that I linked to really loved it. We got not just a thumbs up, but a heart. So that was a yay for us and a yay for them. Now, you can also share links to articles that are beginning to trend. When you know about trends first, your audience learns to value you as their go-to source. Again, it's the kind of attention when they look to you as the go-to for new information that is extremely valuable in your marketing. In this example, I was drawn to the circled piece because I know that our ideal audience is on Twitter a lot, and this piece had gathered most of its shares as it trended on Twitter. Now, I would suggest that you should also share links to articles that are written by influencers as both of your smart curation and influencer strategies. So often people approach influencer outreach as an effort to get influencers to do something for them. You've probably gotten these emails. But we think that a better option is to begin really by thinking about what you can offer to an influencer first. One of the easier starting points, which also basically cost nothing, is to share their content. So I would suggest creating lists of influencers like the one here. With BuzzSumo, then, you can divide influencers into topics or assign them to team members or even to projects or client lists. Our tool will help you know anytime they publish something new. You're going to want to make a habit of sharing, liking, and commenting on those posts. Also, reading it is a great idea. Another option is to create saved lists of content by author so that you can easily share the content, you can easily link to it or quote it in your original articles. So let's take a second to address an elephant in the room. Is it a good idea to share links to your competitors' content? I've got a couple of opinions from marketers that I trust. It was funny because I emailed a couple of marketing buddies and I heard back from two of them in 60 seconds. They had entirely different answers. So here's one. Elisa Meredith says, yes, sharing content that is helpful is a sacred trust with your audience, no matter where it comes from. And it can help you to get more customers because they like you and appreciate what you give to them. So she's in the yes camp. Nadia Koja says no. She's marketing her product ultimately to get more sales than her competitor. So she's not convinced that calling attention to them will help her beat the competition. And she asked, this made me laugh, would mixed martial arts fighter Ronda Rousey recommend her opponent Holly Holm instead of taking the glory and fame for herself? We don't think so. Hoisha or Halucia says maybe, only if the competitor's content provides enough value. She thinks that right now her content is better, so she's not sharing competitors' content. But if her competitors can beat her in the content game, then she has no problem sharing that content. So you can decide for yourself whether or not you want to go ahead and share your direct competitors' content. Once you make a decision, I'd be curious to hear from you too, what you decide. So here are some best practices to consider for sharing links. Buffer has a post that summarizes some of the ratios that are out there for sharing content. The ratios are designed to help you think through how much of your socially shared content should come from your own site versus others. I think that the sheer number of formulas is a good example of why testing and knowing what works for your particular audience is important. I'm going to put the link to this post in the follow-up email I send so that you can check out the ratios and use them as a rule of thumb to do more research into what works for your audience. Now, remember that the goal here is not to just keep tossing links along, but to add your own spin or take. So tell your audience why you think it's important, why you shared it, and then invite them to respond. This quote from Sean Bester summarizes well. He draws a distinction between aggregated content, which is simply compiled and then dished out. Curated content, though, he says, is handpicked with a focus on quality. So once you have a plan to share links in place, you should also plan to showcase other people's work in your own blog posts and articles. This is ultimately going to strengthen your relationship with influencers, add to your content assets more quickly and less expensively, and raise your profile as the source to go to for industry information. Here's one example. You can email a roundup of great posts on your topic. Mari Smith does this with her weekly-ish social scoop email. I really like getting it. I always skim the description she includes. That's her take on the topic. Many times I follow the links in the articles and end up sharing those links. BuzzSumo makes it easy to find the most shared posts for the week. You can bookmark them and then write a short summary to each of those most shared posts of the week. You can also do what Jay Baer at Convince and Convert does and email a roundup of your own posts that have gotten the most favorable response from your audience. Again, you can track that easily with BuzzSumo. Just enter your own domain and filter to the week's most shared content. You'll know right away what your audience liked the best. You can write a post about trending topics. Another version of this is to write a best of the year, best of the month for your industry. This is an example of our most viral content from 2015. this one actually includes a lot of analysis as well as just listing out those posts. So we did curate images and examples from other people's content, but then Steve, one of our founders, did a lot of analysis of what was working. So I would say that this is more of a hybrid type of post. Now, you can also write a post like this, which is a best of the tips or best of resources for a particular topic. This post on 557 email hacks is actually a curated list of links to other posts, but the post which curates the links is ranking #1 in search on Google for the topic. You can use our saved articles feature again to easily build this type of list, and when you have 558 of them in your saved list, you're ready to go. Now, another type of post that you can do with curated content is to write a commentary post. So I'm not sure what the line is between a commentary post and a newsjacking post. I think there is one, but they do have some strong overlap. Here's an example from Ron L. Smith at Moz. He wrote an opposing view of a post on BuzzSumo. Now, you'll notice that, he leads with our post. It's very clearly linked to. And then I just did a little bit of research, and this post that he wrote, essentially a commentary on something that we published, is his second most shared post for the year. It also performed well out of all the content that was published at Moz. Now, I would suggest too that you should plan to build your content around ideas that you gain from other people's content. At Content Marketing World this year, Ann Handley of Marketing Profs told her audience of writers to become a hoarder of ideas for their writing. This is so much easier with tools like a saved articles feature. I know that there are others out there as well. So I would suggest using Curation to build a skyscraper or best answer to beat file. I'm borrowing the analogy of skyscrapers from Brian Dean, who says, no one wants to go and visit the 5th tallest building in a city. They want to see the #1 building. So you can build a list of saved articles that are providing really great answers, or they are the skyscraper of answers in that industry. And then you can create your own version of what works best for that. You can also build a saved list of the articles that got the most attention from your audience. If it resonates with your audience, it's worth making a note so that you can provide more of that type of content in the future. I'm going to go ahead and emphasize again the importance of working influencers into your curation strategy. If you're writing a post about a topic, create a saved list of influencers who have something valuable to say about it. You can quote them, or better yet, reach out to them. I'd suggest using an @ message at Twitter, not a direct message, but an @ message. Ask it, tell them you found their post, you liked it. Can you quote them? Possibly even feed them a leading question that is going to give them an opportunity to give you a fresh quote. Now, you also want to plan to promote your customers' content. Take your spotlight basically and shine it on them. They're going to be grateful and hopefully remember that value add the next time they're working through a budget process or a tool or service provider discussion in their team. Lego does this a lot with user-generated content. This is an example just of their gallery of things that their users have created. Lars Silberbauer, who's the director of search and marketing at the company, has described user-generated content as a key part of their content strategy. You can also rely on your customers as resources when you create something new. Anders Pink does a good job of this. They have developed a post that includes 23 people's perspective. Many of them are users, and they even invite some of their readers at the very beginning of the post to skip the post and go directly to see the product created by a user via their site. I just wanted to say this as well. You also need to plan to be ethical. Content curation is not just copying and pasting someone else's work under your byline. I'm sure that if you're here and listening to this, you already know that, but I think it bears repeating. I love how Heidi Cohen has summarized this. She says, content curation gives credit where credit is due. Content marketing has a great resource. It's a post about 10 ethical standards to use in curating content. So I'm going to go ahead and include a link to that in my follow-up email. So this is just to get you started thinking about how to curate content for engagement. I hope it's been helpful to you. So thanks for taking time to be here. And now there was one question. If you have some others, feel free to just jot them down in the question box, but if you need to go, totally understand. Steve is asking why @message someone on Twitter versus DM. What's the perception difference? Steve, for me, it's not so much a perception difference as like a practical difference. I hardly ever check my direct messages. Direct messages seem to be populated largely by auto responses. If I follow someone, thanks for following, follow me on LinkedIn. So I tend to ignore those. But if someone @messages me, I get that as a notification in my Twitter feed. I've also had more success with that as far as reaching out to people. One time I was working on a post for BuzzSumo. I needed a quote from someone at Washington Post. So I used BuzzSumo to find a Twitter handle of someone in the right department, sent them an @message, and within, I guess it was 24 hours, I had the quote I needed. So I tend to get better answers when I do that. One thing to be aware of, though, if you do use the @message strategy, is anyone who follows both you and the person you're reaching out to can see those messages. So if you're sending a bunch of them, you want to change them up a little bit. No one likes to feel like, oh, I just got an @message and so did 12 of my closest influencer friends. Thanks again. We really appreciate you logging in and taking some time to learn about this.